the garden was garden too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was there all right. I tell you, I was there all right. I was there too. And then, what happened was, right, the whole ground around me, it was really, really violent. It was so violently, I was scared of it, and then, this, well, I suppose she must have been an angel. Yeah, it was a lot of lightning. Like a snow, wasn't it? Anyway, he came down, that big boulder, and he shoved it over to the side. Well, I tell you, I was scared of the boulder, it was like I was dead. Yeah, he was scared, and I said, when I came to, I had my little legs, I shot off down to the town, the chief next to it, the chief priest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I told him to put down and tell him what I'd seen. Yeah, I said, I was scared of the little baby, I was happy. But anyway, they told me to keep your mouth shut. And if anyone was to ask, what about it, I was to say that Jesus is must come stolen his body. But I'll tell you what, sure as empty then, that Jesus' body was not stolen. No, it was not stolen, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what, don't ask me out. It is alive.
Anything else you can tell us?
Oh, I'm stepping up. Sure as naked eggs, he's alive. Yeah, I didn't believe it myself at first. You see James and Peter and all of that, and hanging out in a day, and they said, yeah, Jesus just sort of showed up. I wouldn't believe that until I touched the scars where they hung him on that cross. And I think that's why he comes. I was reading the other day, and there it is, he just popped out straight into it. No, it's definitely him. Because I touched the scars and the angel finished to let me know he was still alive. Yeah. Now, as soon as he started talking, I knew it was my friend and my King Jesus. And then the other day, he showed up to 500 people. Yeah. Yeah. They got sure as every day. He's like. So, because 500 people are doing it, we've got also an angel, and why is everyone talking about angels?
This is brilliant. What we're looking for.
Well, I'm convinced for you.
I'm completely convinced. But how are we going to convince them back in Magnum in the year 2013?
Well, I think we can get back there, and we'll think about it when we get back.
All right, then. Turn the car!
This is the last time,
They're going back into the story, guys.
Here we go,
Give a round of applause. Probably in your minds now, I'm not got political college, I'm the vicar of St George's, and I'd like to welcome you here this afternoon. Now, what I'm going to be saying, mostly for the parents and the children are listening, rather than the children and the parents are listening. But don't switch off kids. What I want you to do is listen really carefully, and then when you get home, ask your mum and dad or whatever relatives taught you today, and test them to see how much they heard. Okay? That's the way we contact our brothers. We hear things and we have a little quick answer. Okay? But first of all, to you parents and relatives, I want to say first of all thank you for letting your children come here this week and join us for the holiday club. I think these days, you know, it's a tricky thing, isn't it? Letting other adults look after your kids for a while, and we thank you for your trust, and I hope we prove worthy of that trust. As far as I know, there's been no injuries, particularly, and things like that. Still, we've had a lot of fun, and I hope the children have too. We've learned some great songs, we just sung a couple of them just now, and we have found out a lot about Jesus from the Bible. What I want to do now is sort of let you know what we've been looking at, and let you know what we've found out, so that you can talk about these things with your children and sort of check us out a bit, if you know what I mean. Now, a few weeks ago, I was at a meeting in Richard Allabon Primary School in the Rose Room. If you know that school, that's where kids go to get disciplined. That's not the reason I was there. Although I am quite naughty from time to time. Anyway, I was in that room actually, I was a bit bored. It was one of those sorts of meetings, and I was looking around the room, and I saw on the shelf 2 book baskets. Okay? And one of them had a big label on the front that said fiction, in other words, made up stories basket. Okay? And the other one was labelled non-fiction. In other words, this is full of books of history and facts and things like that. And to my great disturbance, and I was a bit okay, at the front of the fiction basket, next to these books, was the Bible. I didn't make that noise. I didn't talk to the head teacher after. At the front of the non-fiction basket was Richard Dawkins' book on evolution. Now, Richard Dawkins is the man in this picture. Remember that? He was part of an advertising campaign of London buses driving around London. There's probably no God. Do you remember that? Now, he says things like that because he thinks there's no evidence for God, for faith in God. He said in one of his books, these words, I think that's from 3. Faith is belief in spite of, even perhaps because of, the lack of evidence. So, has everything that we've been saying this week to ourselves and to the children, is it just fairy tale and make-believe? Have we invited the children to put their faith in an imaginary person called Jesus, who didn't really do these things? They're just sort of fairy tale and make-believe. Well, I hope to show you that even in the short time, that the answer is no. We haven't invited them to put their faith in an imaginary person called Jesus. And I want to show you just some of the evidence that we've been investigating ourselves this week. So sort of hang on to your seats as we go several parts. First of all, we've been looking at a book in the Bible called Luke's Gospel. And at the start of his book, I should have a Bible in my hand, shouldn't I? Is there one Bible you've got there? It's the Bible. In the Bible is Luke's Gospel. And at the beginning of Luke's Gospel, he writes this. Is that on the screen? Looks like an awful lot. Let me read it from the screen. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. Therefore, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, it seemed good also to me to write an ordinary account for you, O most excellent Theophilus, this is who he wrote the book for, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. In other words, not airy-fairy make-believe stuff, but here, Theophilus, is the eyewitness evidence for you to be certain of the things you're hearing about Jesus. Now, at the turn of the last century, there was a famous archaeologist. His name was Professor William Benedict. You can look this up on the internet if you want. And he set out, he made it one of his life tasks to prove that Luke's gospel was bunkum, was inaccurate, was not reliable history at all. Many, many years later, having thoroughly investigated the dates, the names, the places, the events, all those sorts of things, as far as he could with the archaeologist, he wrote a book that included these words. You may test the words of Luke's Gospel to a degree beyond any other historian, and they stand the keenest scrutiny and the hardest treatment. In other words, this man who set out to show Luke's Gospel was inaccurate is now saying it's totally reliable, totally accurate history. The events that Luke wrote about really happened. Isn't that amazing? I don't think Dawkins has read that stuff. So let's look at some of the things that we learned about Jesus and the evidence that supported it. This is fairly brief. First, Jesus has authority to forgive sins. So we heard that the biggest problem that all of us face is this thing called sin, which we describe like this: S, shut off God; I'm in charge; N, no to your rule. In other words, we're rebels, we're guilty of treason, we're living in God's world as though He didn't exist, or didn't matter very much. We just get on with our own life to Him, okay? Now the penalty for treason like that is the death penalty. It's really serious. It's a debt that we owe God, that He'll call in one day. And the debt is our life. We owe Him our life for this. Now, this is Stuart, Agent 999. Okay? If I owed Stuart £100, I couldn't ask 007, that's Lizzie, to let me off that debt, could I? Because it's Stuart I owe the money to. Lizzie can't let me off. Now, we heard in Luke's Gospel about a paralyzed man who was lowered in front of Jesus, in front of the great crowd, as big as this crowd. And Jesus said to him, "Son, your sins are forgiven." In other words, I've cancelled your debt to God. How did Jesus do that? Is He God? They asked. And He said, well, let me show you why you should trust that I have the authority to forgive sins. And there is this man being paralyzed all his life, lying there, and Jesus said, "Get up, take your mat and walk." And instantaneously, the man got up and walked out in front of all of the people, the eyewitnesses. Now, I don't know whether he had a physical problem and had to go to the physiotherapist or hospital to get it treated, but it takes days, not weeks, not months, not years. Especially someone who's paralyzed. Instantaneous. Only God can do it. Okay. So that was the evidence that Jesus has the authority to forgive sin. The second one is this: that Jesus is the Son of God. Son of God means the person with the power of God. Not just a human being. And we heard about this amazing day when they were out on a lake, the Sea of Galilee, and this terrible storm came down off the mountain. And the boat was being thrown all over the place, and water was coming on board. And Jesus was in the boat with fishermen who fished that lake in their lives. Peter, James, and John, and Andrew, that's all. And they were terrified. They thought they were going to die. And they turned to Jesus and said, "Help, Jesus, help, don't care." And Jesus had to be asleep. And he got up, and with just a couple of words, or three, he said, "Quiet, be still." And instantaneously, not only did the wind stop, but the waves went completely calm. the wind stopped and the waves get worse for a while. But everything went completely calm. That shows he has the power of God. In fact, the creation, the wind and the waves, recognize the voice of their creator God and respond to it. The third thing is this, third thing we know, is that Jesus came to save the lost. I have to ask, don't you, why did the Son of God come to earth? Now, most people think, as they thought back then, that Jesus is a bit like the head teacher. And that what he does is that he comes to reward good people, people who've been well behaved, in the balance of their life they've done more good than bad. And he comes to punish the really bad people just one step down the line from me. Okay? But he hasn't come to do that. He's not come to reward the good and punish the bad. No, he's much more like marital rescue. Right? He's much more like someone who's come to the rescue of people who are lost. So if you're up in the mountains and you get lost, you've got your mobile, you phone in, and the helicopter comes and rescues you. That's much more what Jesus came to do. And the evidence for this is that Zacchaeus, he was a nasty bit of work. He was a little man, okay? And he was a tax collector. Now that means that Israel was occupied by this brutal foreign force, the Roman Empire. And this horrible little man was an Israelite. And he took money of his own people to give to their enemy, the Romans, as tax. And not only did he do that, but the Romans would say, after £10, and he would take 20 off his own people and pocket 10 himself. What a horrible little bit of work. Okay? And yet, Jesus walking along in a great crowd of people, respectable people, nice people, good people. He looked up at Zacchaeus, he climbed up on a tree to see Jesus. And he said, Zacchaeus, come down, I'm going to have tea in your house today. And in the ancient world, to invite someone or to invite yourself to their house is a sign of friendship. So Jesus came, not to reward good people and punish bad people, but to save the lost. Lost meaning people who've wandered from God, guilty of sin, shut up God, I'm in charge, no to me. And actually that's all. And we saw that the lost people are actually the people who acknowledge their loss. They're like a person up the mountain who knows their loss. What they do is they turn into hell. So Jesus is talking about people who come to rescue people who are willing to call on him to save them from their sins. Okay, the fourth thing is this. And last, Jesus paid for our sins with his own death. So we heard that the penalty for sin is death. We owe God our debt. And what Jesus did is that he chose to suffer and die on the cross to pay our death penalty for us, so we would never have to experience eternal death. Yeah, our bodies die, but we'd never have to experience eternal death cut off from God forever. Jesus has paid that debt for us, so we can enjoy friendship with God and life with him forever in his kingdom. Well, how do we know that the death of Jesus works? Well, imagine this. Imagine there's a big oil rig in the North Sea, and it's wreaking havoc, killing all sorts of wildlife and all that sort of stuff. It's dead. And a diver goes down into the North Sea to fix the leak. Now, you don't know whether it's worked. He's down there. The time that you know that it's worked is when he resurfaces and puts the sun down. Okay? And this is what happened with Jesus. He went down into death for us. And we know that what he did worked because he came up from death. He was raised from death on the third day and appeared to all sorts of people over a period of 40 days. At one time, 500 people. Various people like with his band of 12, time and again. And he wasn't a ghost. We've heard this. He invited Thomas to come and put his fingers in the wound in his side where he'd been pierced by a spear. Put wound in his hand, the scar on his hand. And Thomas did that. The doubting Thomas did that. One other time, they were in a room, and Jesus appeared to them, and they thought he was a ghost. He said, no, come and see, come and touch. Hear what I'm saying to you. And there's a piece of fish. Just give me a bit of fish, which he gave him from it. Ghosts do not eat fish. Okay? And these guys who saw him and went out proclaiming this great news, most of them died for the message they were proclaiming. You don't die for a lie. Not like that. Not the way they died. The evidence is outstanding beyond a shadow of a doubt. These things happen, and they are true. Well, you might say to me, okay, well, that's all right for them. It's all right for them. But how are we to believe without seeing him? How are we to believe without seeing Jesus ourselves? And I just want to give you an example of how you can believe without seeing. So, I want you to imagine that big person there, who I don't know. That's another person there who I do know. That person is called Luke, and that person is called Thomas. Okay? And here I am, and I'm a very keen Newcastle United fan. That's the most I would expect it. Now, on a Saturday afternoon, I was busy in the garden. And I haven't been able to get to the match, and I can't get to the radio, and I can't get to the television. But I want to know what the score is. I have my mobile with me, and I phoned my mate Luke. And Luke phoned his mate Thomas, who's at the match. And Thomas, who's at the match, says the score is so-and-so to Luke on the call. And Luke texts me on my phone. Okay? Now what happens is, although I can't see the match, Thomas has told Luke, Luke's recorded it, and he's texted me. Okay? So I will take the word of Luke, my friend's word. There's no reason why he should lie to me. And his friend Luke, and Thomas, there's no reason why Thomas should lie to him. It's very straightforward, isn't it? There's Thomas that said that follower Thomas saw Jesus raised from the dead. Luke got hold of the eyewitness evidence from the eyewitnesses and wrote it down for us, and we read Luke's gospel, and there we are. We can believe, even though we haven't seen with our own eyes, we can believe. We have the eyewitness account, and we can take their words for it. So, on the basis of just in that little bit of evidence, we gently invited the children to admit that they too were lost, wandered from God. We said, you can believe in Jesus because he came to save the lost. Why not come to him and be saved? That's their decision, isn't it? And it's your decision. But it's something for you to think about. And I must say, it's nothing to go on investigating. If you're not convinced, you may not be convinced about a short talk like this, but then, that's what the Bible is. So, it's going to invite you to go on looking at the evidence, carefully investigating the evidence. And I think you'll find that the evidence can bear the weight of your scrutiny. Okay? It's not that dull. Okay? And I'd like you to go on investigating it in a number of ways. You could read the Bible for yourself. You might get stuck. It's a bit of a technical book at point. You need help, I need help. One way of doing that is coming on a Sunday. We're not trying to get bums on seats in church. We're not into that. But we are into people getting to know Jesus and being saved. So if you'd like to come at 10:30 on a Sunday here, or 5:30 at Dagenham Congregational Church in Northampton Square, you'd be more than welcome. You don't have to come as a believer, you don't have to behave funny, you can dress like you are now. You get a little funny, you can come. Okay? You'll find out like we are here. And all we do is look in the Bible and look at the evidence and talk about these things among ourselves. Okay? You could come on Sunday, you could bring the children to midweek class, you've shown them about that. We also run things like courses. There's a thing called the Christianity Explored course that specifically looks at the evidence so that you can consider it and put your own faith in Jesus. So there we are. That's what we have been teaching the children, and I hope you approve of that. And I hope some of you might be thinking, actually, we wouldn't mind investigating this a little further ourselves. Too important to ignore. Let me pray.